A very good morning to all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari and I hope that you all must be doing fine. So let's start with today's analysis for 23rd of March 2023. So some of the important topics that we'll be looking into includes the Bilkis Banu case. Again, this is a news. Then reimagined with artificial intelligence. The ghost of Assam, they take the digital form. And here you can just have an idea about how artificial intelligence it can play roles in diverse ways, so we'll be looking into that. And 550 foreign firms, they shut their shops in India in the last 5 years. So business train will be looking into this also at the business page. And the US Fed is walking a tightrope and they have again raised their interest rates, which led to bank runs. So again, in another meeting, they have again raised their policy rates. So we'll be looking into that thing, analyzing how now that is going to impact the RBI and its decision. So let's start with the analysis. So Prime Minister warns that COVID-19 pandemic is far from over. So as we are seeing कि COVID-19 cases increase हो रहे हैं, we are again seeing a spike in COVID-19 cases. So a warning by the Prime Minister that you need not get relaxed and be comfortable कि COVID-19 pandemic तो अब चला गया है, वापस से नहीं आ सकता है. So it is not over yet. And Modi asked officials to increase whole genome sequencing to help identify the emerging variants. And at a meeting to assess the recent rise in COVID-19 and the influenza cases and the public health readiness. So our preparedness, so that is being assessed and looked into. So from the perspective of science, you need to know more about the whole genome sequencing in this news. Apart from that, so barricades of the UK mission in Delhi after protests in London. So we are seeing again in India also how India is basically now dealing with things in India about the British Commission in India. So the British High Commission on Wednesday refused to comment after the law enforcement agencies they removed the barricades around the British High Commission in New Delhi's Chanakyapuri and the residence of the UK High Commissioner. So since you're seeing कि London में भी जो खालिस्तान के supporters हैं, how they went and they just removed the Indian flag at the Indian High Commission in London. So that's how basically in how India has done the same thing, almost we can say the same thing in India for the British High Commission. But I think that's not the way to deal with such situations. And moving forward, so budget has been presented for Delhi and focusing upon new infrastructure has been promised, but many want existing issues to be solved. Apart from that, there's no mention of the 20 lakh jobs in 2023-24 budget. And up it hopes on the Mohalla bus scheme to reach the last mile. And maximum allocation goes to the education sector, followed by others, then it is for health. So likewise, you can just have a look and not going into detail of it. So Children's Park gets Israeli drip irrigation system. So you need to know this thing ki Israel say we are like whatever we learn in terms of the technology because they have very advanced technology. So you need to keep this thing in mind ki Israel say we bring into a lot of advanced technology the in terms of water conservation and likewise. So Israel plays a very important role in this area. So recently, the Embassy of Israel it has presented a drip irrigation system for Children's Park, which is near India Gate, and that's there. So there's another example. So this is another example of the multifaceted partnership between Israel and India in the field of water. And really, we are looking forward to collaborating with the NDMC to transform this park into a water efficient parks. So this is another thing that we're focusing upon as far as water conservation and management is concerned. So tributes to the heroes of our nation, Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev on their martyrdom day, which is on 23rd of March 2023, which is today. So Prime Minister says that the martyrdom of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Sukhdev was a watershed moment in our history, and every Indian is proud that these three great men, they belong to our land. At the peak of their youth, they sacrificed their lives so that others can live a life of freedom and dignity. So a salute to all the three personalities. So multimodal connectivity, एक साल नई मिसाल, संकल्प नए उत्तराखंड का. So some of the important things and achievements after completion of 1 year of the government in Uttarakhand. Coming to editorial page, द लिमिट्स ऑफ द अमेरिकन पावर इन वेस्ट एशिया. सो इस टॉपिक को हम पहले भी कर चुके हैं कि रिसेंटली अभी सऊदी अरेबिया एंड ईरान के बीच में जो रिस्टोर हुए उनके डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशंस, उसकी वजह से वी लुक्ड एट दिस थिंग कि अमेरिका के लिए वेस्ट एशिया इट इज बिकम like they have deprioritized this area as they have basically reduced their role in this region, and that's how basically China is coming forward, how it is leveraging this opportunity to increase its role, because it is also one of the, we can say, largest importer of oil from Saudi Arabia. So definitely China has a play, it has a role, and it is trying to increase it given that USA is trying to reduce its role in West Asia. So limits of American power in West Asia. So we'll be looking at some of the important points in this article. So past mistakes, this did not happen over time, obviously. Over the past 20 years, we have seen that USA has made a host of mistakes in West Asia, which has led to a decline in its overall influence and an associated policy recalibration by its allies. So USA, basically, USA का अगर हम history में देखें कि क्या role रहा है in West Asia, so majorly it has sent troops. Afghanistan say it withdrew, and that's when we saw the Taliban regime, it took over in Afghanistan. So different like wars may it has been present. So these are being categorized as the past mistakes of US. So if we take the case of Iraq, Syria, and Iran, which is a country of the US invaded, brought regime change, and then it occupied. So second is that a country where it sought regime change without a full-scale invasion, and three, that is a country which it sought to both contain and engage. That's in Iran. So these are some of the examples how USA it has played a role in Western Asia. So when US it invaded Iraq on 20th of March 2003, it was at the peak of its power. So जब USA ने इराक को invade किया 2003 में, it was at its peak, and America's Arab allies, they lined up to support this war. So Arab allies में you have Saudi Arabia, and but what they saw was like from a security perspective was the mindless destruction of the Iraqi state, which triggered sectarian bloodshed and led to the rise of radical Islamist outfits, and which includes Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which later transformed into the Islamic State and further destabilizing this region. So that's how things they went. And from a geopolitical point of view, we see that Iran invasion, it took down a buffer that the Sunni Arab Gulf monarchies had between themselves and a Shia theocratic Iran, and this offered post Saddam Iraq on a platter to Shia parties that had historical ties with Iran. So when the Syrian civil war that broke out, Arab monarchies found it an opportunity to push Iran back by taking out the regime in the Damascus. So US supported the regime change bloc, and it called for President Bashar al-Assad to go, offered aid to the rebels, and launched a secretive Central Intelligence Agency program there. So we see that it is like burned its fingers in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Libya, and the US appetite for another full-scale military intervention was already diminishing. So that's how basically we can say, in a way, US has not been successful in meeting its objectives as far as West Asia is concerned. And talking about the current limitations of USA, so today USA is aware of its limitations, and it is also facing bigger conventional challenges elsewhere. So one is with obviously China and another with Russia because of this war. So, to address this task of retaining America's influence in West Asia with reduced commitments, USA came up with the proposal of collectivizing its alliances, that is, bringing the Arab allies and the Israel closer so that Israel can take a larger security role in a collective front against Iran. But ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ, and recently Saudi Arabia and Iran, they have come together because उनके relations have been restored, which was brokered by China. So USA wanted कि सऊदी अरेबिया और इजराइल दोनों साथ मिलके ईरान को अपोज करे, एंड दे बेसिकली एक दोनों एक फोर्स बन के दे नीड टू एक्ट अगेंस्ट ईरान. सो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. सो यूएसए यहाँ पे भी फेल हो गया इन अ वे वी कैन से. बट यूएसए ये चाहता था कि अगर उसकी कमिटमेंट्स इन वेस्ट एशिया दैट इज रिड्यूसिंग, बट उसका इन्फ्लुएंस कम नहीं होना चाहिए. सो इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इट वांटेड जो उसके अरब अलाइज थे उनको इसराइल के साथ क्लब करके दे कैन एक्ट एज अ फोर्स अगेंस्ट ईरान. बट इसका ऑपोजिट ही हुआ है. सऊदी अरेबिया इट हैज come closer to Iran, we can say. But this approach has at least 3 problems. So इस approach में 3 problems हैं जो USA चाहता था. One is that with its deprioritization of West Asia, USA's leverage over its allies that is slipping. So obviously अगर USA अपना role कम कर रहा है, it is moving out its forces also. So USA का जो influence है वो definitely कम होगा. जो भी उसके allies हैं, one of them was Saudi Arabia. So अब कंट्रीज अपने खुद डिसीजंस लेंगी. दे वुड बी सीइंग कि कैसे वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर चेंज हो रहा है, कैसे जियो पॉलिटिक्स चेंज हो रही है, एंड जो उनके बेस्ट इंटरेस्ट में होगा ऑब्वियसली वो उसी चीज को सपोर्ट करेंगे एंड वो उसी के साथ आगे जाएंगे. सो दैट्स व्हाट एग्जैक्टली सऊदी अरेबिया डिड नाउ. So second challenge is that Israel's continuing occupation of the Palestinian territories, and that could play a spoiler in the bid to collectivize the alliances. So recently we're seeing कि every second day इसराइल से रिलेटेड न्यूज आ रही है दैट वायलेंस इज इंक्रीजिंग. इसराइल कभी एयर स्ट्राइक्स कर देता है, कभी रॉकेट्स लॉन्च कर देता है टुवर्ड्स द पैलेस्टीनियन टेरिटरी. सो वेस्ट बैंक एंड गाजा स्ट्रिप के बारे में आपको क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए. सो एक ये रीजन भी है कि वायलेंस इंक्रीज हो रही है, इसराइल अटैक्स कर रहा है. तो व्हाई वुड बेसिकली कंट्रीज सपोर्ट इसराइल, एंड ये कलेक्टिवाइजेशन में प्रॉब्लम कर सकता है. सो दैट इज द सेकेंड चैलेंज. And third is that the Israel's linchpin of the America's collectivization strategy itself is resisting American influence. So third challenge is Israel खुद USA को resist कर रहा है. Israel खुद यूएसए जो इन्फ्लुएंस करना चाह रहा है, जो डिसीजंस लेना चाह रहा है, जो वो चाहता है इसराइल करे, इसराइल वो नहीं चाहता है. सो इसराइल इन अ वे इट इज आल्सो रेजिस्टिंग यूएसए's influence. So these are some of the challenges. And Israel, it has refused to join the Western sanctions against Russia, and it refused to send weapons to Ukraine. So Israel is not supporting Ukraine in this Russia-Ukraine war, and जो sanctions put किए गए by the Western countries over Russia, Israel ने उनको भी support नहीं किया है. So Israel is not party to that also. So Israel ने weapons भी नहीं send किए to Ukraine. And this is a multi-pillar region. So as you're seeing कि USA West Asia को deprioritize कर रहा है, it is leaving behind a vacuum. And ये vacuum China, basically China अपना role increase करने के लिए, it is trying to fill this vacuum. So its allies, they are trying to establish more predictable ties with the friends and foes, creating their own spheres of influence and emerging as the new pillars of this region in West Asia. So Israel, it wants to strengthen its ties with the Arab world to face down Iran without compromising on Palestine. Second is that Iran wants to break out of the economic chokehold of the sanctions and release its true potential. So ईरान भी ये चाहता है कि जो उसके ऊपर sanctions लगाए गए हैं obviously उसको economically hamper कर रहे हैं. तो अगर वो बाकी जो Arab countries हैं in Western Asia उनके साथ collaborate करेंगे, if they come closer, if they restore their ties, so obviously उन sanctions का जो impact है वो at least कम हो सकता है. And Turkey wants to swing back to a region which it once dominated, and Turkey अपनी dominance को फिर से restore करना चाहता है. Saudi Arabia wants to become the natural leader of Arab world, so Saudi Arabia natural leader बनना चाहता है. And China, which is the new superpower on the block, it wants to make sure that its economic interest they are protected. So China चाहता है कि उसके economic interest protected रहे, China का role भी definitely increase हो. So China is trying its best. So each and every country in Western Asia, अब वो जो उनके self interest है वो उनको fulfill करने में लगे हुए हैं. एंड वी आर सीइंग इन दिस कि जो यूएसए की इन्फ्लुएंस है वो डेफिनेटली कम होती जा रही है. So this does not mean कि America is going to retreat from the region completely. ये तो हम नहीं बोल सकते हैं, but USA has several bases and it has tens of thousands of troops which are deployed across the region. तो जहाँ तक कि हम ट्रूप्स की बात करें, सो यूएसए ने एब्सोल्युटली जितने भी उनके ट्रूप्स डिप्लॉयड है उन सबको विड्रॉ नहीं किया है. एंड सेकेंडली यूएसए के बहुत सारे बेसिस भी सेटअप हैं इन वेस्टर्न एशिया. सो ये नहीं बोल सकते हैं कि यूएसए ने कम्प्लीटली इस रीजन में से विड्रॉ कर लिया है. यूएसए का कोई रोल ही नहीं है, यूएसए मतलब कोई मतलब ही नहीं रखता है कि वेस्ट एशिया में क्या हो रहा है, ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है. एंड वी सी दैट it will continue to play a major security role in this region. So we see कि but the Gulf or the larger West Asia, it is no longer an exclusive American sphere of influence. So ये जो exclusive American sphere of influence पहले होता था, अब वो नहीं है. एंड वी कैन नॉट से कि यूएसए का कोई रोल नहीं है, यूएसए ने completely retreat कर लिया है. इट इज गोइंग टू प्ले अ रोल एज अ मेजर सिक्योरिटी रोल वी कैन से इन दिस रीजन, बट जो उसकी एक्सक्लूसिव इन्फ्लुएंस थी वो कम हो गई है. So it is too early to say whether the regional realignments, including the Saudi-Iran reconciliation, that would survive the infamously factious geopolitics of West Asia or not. So recently Saudi और ईरान की जो reconciliation हमें देखने को मिली, वो आने वाले टाइम में हमें पता चलेगा कि whether it is going to survive or not. But there are three constants in this whirlwind. So three constants क्या है? America's declining ability to shape the geopolitical outcomes in this region. डेफिनेटली ये बहुत क्लियरली विजिबल है कि अमेरिका जो इन्फ्लुएंस है एंड जो उसकी पहले एक्सक्लूसिव अमेरिकन इन्फ्लुएंस था वो कम हो चुका है in terms of shaping the geopolitics of Western Asia. Second is that China's continued rise and a growing appetite for the USA's allies to make autonomous foreign policy choices. So second is China का continued rise. Third is जो USA के allies थे, the Arab world, now they are like खुद say they are trying to make their own foreign policy choices. So this is new terrain for America and in the West Asia. So that's how things are changing and being reshaped in Western Asia. So abolition is the way. So यहाँ पे अगर हम डेथ पेनल्टी की बात कर रहे हैं कि इशू इज द डेथ पेनल्टी, डेथ पेनल्टी देना खुद एक इशू है, नॉट कि किस तरीके से आप उसको एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं. क्योंकि कल के हमने न्यूज़पेपर में ये देखा था कि चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया एंड सुप्रीम कोर्ट वो ये बोल रहे कि जिस तरीके से अभी एग्जीक्यूशन किया जाता है क्या उसका कोई और ह्यूमेन ऑल्टरनेटिव है या नहीं. बट यहाँ पे हम ये बोल रहे हैं कि डेथ पेनल्टी खुद एक इशू है, नॉट कि किस तरीके से एग्जीक्यूट किया जाता है. So 40 years after holding that the mode of executing the prisoners by hanging, it cannot be termed too cruel or barbaric, the Supreme Court of India, it has now ventured to find out if there is a more dignified and less painful method to carry out the death sentences. So the idea of finding an alternative mode of execution, one considered less painful and involves little cruelty, it has been part of the wider debate on whether the death penalty should be abolished or not. सो ये टॉपिक हमेशा न्यूज में इसीलिए रहा है कि क्या डेथ पेनल्टी जो कैपिटल पनिशमेंट है उसको अबॉलिश किया जाना चाहिए या नहीं. And this has always been a matter of debate. So judicial and administrative thinking, they have leaned towards backing both the idea of capital punishment and the practice of hanging. So far हमने यही देखा है, जुडिशरी एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ने दोनों ने सपोर्ट किया है कैपिटल पनिशमेंट को एंड द प्रैक्टिस ऑफ हैंगिंग, बेसिकली जिस तरीके से कैपिटल पनिशमेंट इज एग्जीक्यूटेड. सो दिस हैज ऑलवेज बीन सपोर्टेड बाय जुडिशरी एंड द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. So now bench, it has sought fresh data to substantiate the argument that a more humane means of execution can be found. So basically अभी तो they are searching कि और कोई humane तरीका है जिसमें कम पेन हो, जिसमें which is less cruel we can say. So right now the search is going on for that, and there are two leading judgments on this issue. One is the Bachchan Singh versus the state of Punjab of 1980, which upheld the death penalty but limited it to the rarest of rare cases. So this is what the Bachchan Singh verdict upheld, कि death penalty was upheld by it, but it limited कि ये सिर्फ रेयरेस्ट ऑफ रेयर केसेस में ही यूज की जानी चाहिए. सेकंड जजमेंट इज द दीन दयाल वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया एंड अदर्स ऑफ 1983, व्हिच upheld the method by ruling that hanging is as painless as possible and it causes no greater pain than any other known method. So दीनदयाल was regarding method of execution, and उन्होंने बोला कि जो current method है that is the least painful, and अगर और कोई भी alternatives है तो उन सब में hanging is the least painful method. Then we have the 35th report of the Law Commission of 1967, which had noted that while electrocution and use of gas chamber and lethal injection, they were considered by some to be less painful, it was not in a position to come to a conclusion. So it refrained from recommending any change. So even the 35th report of Law Commission ने कोई भी change recommend नहीं किया in the way the death penalty is executed, क्योंकि जो और बाकी alternatives है कि electrocution basically electric current देके you can cause death, using of a gas chamber कि एक chamber में you basically the person is there and आप बहुत सारी gases release कर दोगे. Another alternative is कि आप कोई ऐसा lethal substance inject कर दोगे body में which causes death. So these कुछ लोगों का मानना है कि ये जो 3 alternatives हैं ये less painful है, but again लॉ कमीशन ने जो करंट मेथड है उसको चेंज करने के लिए कोई भी रिकमेंडेशन नहीं दिया. सो वो किसी कंक्लूजन पे नहीं आ सके. इवन दो वी सी की सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने फेवर नहीं किया है abolition, and it has developed a robust and humane jurisprudence that has made it difficult for the executive to carry out the death sentences. So it has restricted its use to the rarest of rare cases, ye humne dekha in the Bachchan Singh case, and it mandated a balancing of the aggravating and mitigating circumstances before sending someone to the gallows, and allowed a post-appeal review hearing in the open court. So Bachchan Singh case में उन्होंने बोला कि डेथ पेनल्टी रेयरेस्ट ऑफ रेयर केसेस में यूज की जानी चाहिए, एंड बिफोर अवॉर्डिंग अ डेथ सेंटेंस आपको एग्रेवेटिंग एंड मिटिगेटिंग सर्कमस्टांसेस जो कंसिडर किए जाते हैं व्हाइल डिलीवरिंग द जजमेंट वो प्रॉपरली बैलेंस करना इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. उसको कंसिडर करना इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि क्या एग्रेवेटिंग सब्सटेंसेज हैं, क्या एग्रेवेटिंग पॉइंट है किसी पर्टिकुलर केस में कि आपको डेथ पेनल्टी अवॉर्ड करनी पड़ेगी, एंड क्या मिटिगेटिंग सर्कमस्टांसेस हैं जिसकी वजह से यू कैन बेसिकली या तो आप जो पनिशमेंट है जिस तरीके की पनिशमेंट है आप उसको कम कर सकते हो या नहीं. सो दो चीजें आपको कंसिडर करनी होती है कि क्या एग्रेवेटिंग पॉइंट्स हैं एंड क्या मिटिगेटिंग पॉइंट्स हैं. सो इनको बैलेंस करना is what Supreme Court is saying, and at the same time it has evolved a clemency jurisprudence that makes decisions on mercy petitions justiciable and penalizes the undue delay in disposing of the mercy pleas by commuting the death sentences to life. So जो delays भी होते हैं in terms of commuting the death sentences, so commutation में basically ये होता है कि जो nature of punishment है वो change की जाती है. So the question now before the court, it provides yet another opportunity to humanize its approach further, and empirical evidence ये बताता है कि hanging need not result in an early or painful death, while there is a body of proof that shows कि electrocution, lethal injection, they have their own forms of cruelty. So ये तो आप नहीं बोल सकते हो कि अगर हम बाकी alternatives के बारे में भी सोच रहे हैं एंड इफ यू आर लुकिंग इनटू दैट वो लेस पेनफुल हो सकते हैं, क्योंकि डेथ को आप लेस पेनफुल कैसे बना सकते हो, दैट इज व्हाट इज टू बी अंडरस्टूड. तो आप ये नहीं बोल सकते कि उसमें क्रुएलिटी इज लेस. आप चाहे कुछ ऐसा सब्सटेंस इंजेक्ट करो, चाहे आप इलेक्ट्रोक्यूशन की बात करो, सो यू कांट से कि उसमें पेन कम होगा व्हेन यू आर बेसिकली ट्राइंग कि वो इंसान मर जाए. So the union government contends that hanging should be retained, and not only because it is not cruel or inhuman, but also because it accounts for the least number of botched up executions. So this is what union government also supports, ki hanging is the right way to implement death penalties and to execute that. So the real issue, however, is that any form of execution is a fall from humaneness, or it offends human dignity and perpetrates cruelty. So जैसे कि अभी मैंने बोला कि आप किसी भी तरीके के बारे में आप सोच के देख लो, ये नहीं बोल सकते कि उसमें क्रुएलिटी कम है, उसमें पेन कम होगा, दैट इज मोर ह्यूमेन, या उसमें ह्यूमन डिग्निटी को आप सेफ गार्ड कर सकते हो, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली यू आर ट्राइंग कि वो इंसान मर जाए. सो that is the thing, and debating the mode only depends, it only deepens the moral dilemma of whether taking of life is the best response to the taking of life. And if eliminating cruelty and indignity is the aim, abolition is the answer. So अगर आप ultimately कोशिश कर रहे हो कि और क्या humane methods हो सकते हैं of executing the death penalty of the capital punishment, and if you are thinking कि बाकी alternatives में it can be less cruel, उसमें indignity कम हो सकती है, अगर आपका aim वो है तो इसका आंसर यही है कि आपको capital punishment death sentence को completely abolish कर देना चाहिए. So that is the answer to it. क्योंकि जैसे कि हमने बोला कि आप किसी और डिफरेंट ऑल्टरनेटिव्स को ये नहीं बोल सकते कि उसमें आपको कम पेन होगा. सो दैट इज द केस. मूविंग फॉरवर्ड, so talking about ending tuberculosis. So the world, it got a wake-up call in 1993 about tuberculosis when the World Health Organization had declared it as a global health emergency. So TB was declared global health emergency in 1993 में, and 1993 World Development Report labeled TB treatment for adults as the best by amongst all the developmental interventions, and response in 30 years since been short on urgency and long on process. So the current goal is कि हम TB को end करते by 2030, but clarity on the definitions की end word की क्या definition है and the means of verification वो completely well understood नहीं है, they are not fully in place. So following the call first made in 2001 at the G7 in Japan by Kofi Annan, and it was formalized at the next summit in Genoa in Italy, the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, TB, and Malaria that was set up, and it began disbursing the first round of money directed towards the goal. So इसके through हमें money मिलने लग गया to end and to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria. So towards basically there was a global TB epidemic in 2003. So the story of how this new war chest against the diseases of poverty did not remain confined to financing HIV programs alone is for the historians of public health to tease out. So let's have a look at. So the Stop TB Board, it meets in Varanasi, India this week, and it will coincide with the World TB Day. So 24th of March ko we celebrate World TB Day. And India में right now the target is कि हम 2025 तक we end all the cases related to TB in India. ग्लोबल जो टारगेट है दैट इज अप टिल 2030, बट इंडिया ने उसको 5 साल पहले का टारगेट रखा है दैट बाय 2025 विल मेक श्योर कि टीबी इज no more there in India. So despite the constraints, global TB response, it has been adapting to changes. HIV responses, that is inspired engagement of those who's been affected by the disease, and the use of the molecular diagnostic tools, which was developed to respond to the acts of bioterrorism 20 years ago. They are the current state of the art for diagnosing TB. So as we moved forward, technology evolved and we saw कि technology का role in terms of diagnosing, in terms of treating the disease, that is increased. So right now we are dependent much upon the molecular diagnostic tools. So talking about 3 areas, there are 3 key areas that remain underserved, जहाँ पे ध्यान देने की जरूरत है. So 3 कौन से areas है, let's see. So first area is कि one likely to take the longest to mature despite existing developments is in the development and the wide use of an adult TB vaccine. So the first one is key, the one likely to take the longest to mature despite existing development. So one जिसमें time ज़्यादा लगेगा mature होने में, that is the first case. So ये वाले जो केसेस हैं इस पे इतना ज़्यादा ध्यान नहीं दिया जाता है क्योंकि यहाँ पे जो टीबी डेवलप होता है बॉडी के अंदर वो बहुत लंबा टाइम लेता है टू गेट मेच्योर्ड एंड इधर टू गेट आइडेंटिफाइड. सो दैट्स देयर. एंड वाइड यूज ऑफ अडल्ट टीबी वैक्सीन ये भी बहुत कम है. सो this is the first area जो कि underserved है. So the current one, which is delivered, जो TB vaccine अभी currently दी जाती है, which is delivered at birth and useful particularly for the children, is 100 years old. So जो currently TB vaccine के ऊपर हम dependent है वो 100 साल पुरानी already हो चुकी है. And the experience with the COVID-19 vaccine development process gives us an understanding on how things can be done if there is collective will and action. So COVID-19 के केस में हमने देखा कि अगर आपके पास collective will है and you are acting collectively or collaborating, things are going on smoothly, कोई challenges ऐसे नहीं आ रहे in terms of smoothly working together or collaborating, तो it is possible. हमने देखा कि कैसे short period of time में best possible time में हमने कोविड वैक्सीन डेवलप की. सो अगर टीबी वैक्सीन 100 साल पुरानी हो चुकी है तो वी ऑल्सो नीड टू लुक इनटू दिस थिंग एंड वी नीड टू come up with a new TB vaccine that is much more effective given how the things have changed with time. So that's their second underserved area की बात करें, one that can move much faster and then which can move much faster than the vaccine. So second area is जिसमें वैक्सीन से आगे हमें बढ़ना चाहिए and जिसमें चीजें और quickly they can get cured is that of getting newer therapeutic agents for the TB. And coming to the third area, and the most immediate area of action is within the space of diagnostics. So in case of diagnostics, there are exciting developments for use of the artificial assisted handheld radiology with 90-second reporting and 95% plus accuracy for diagnosing TB. So artificial intelligence assisted कुछ ऐसे tools हैं, कुछ machines and technology है, जिससे immediately these are basically the area of action जहाँ पे we can quickly diagnose the TB cases and the patients. तो सिलिकॉन वैली बैंक के बारे में हम ऑलरेडी बात कर चुके हैं कि क्या मेन रीजन था कि दिस बैंक फेल्ड, एंड वन ऑफ द मेन रीजंस वाज टाइट मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी ऑब्वियसली, बट we understood in detail कि how startups since they were the major clients and कैसे उनको फंड रेजिंग में प्रॉब्लम हुई. That was the main reason कि सिलिकॉन वैली बैंक फेल हुआ. So coming to the new topic, फ्रांस में प्रोटेस्ट आर गोइंग ऑन. हमें बस ये पता होना चाहिए कि क्या प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, क्या इश्यूज चल रहे हैं ग्लोबली इन डिफरेंट कंट्रीज. सो फ्रांस में द प्रोटेस्ट ओवर द पेंशन रिफॉर्म्स. सो 17th of March पे protesters in France they clashed with the police in Paris amid growing unrest over the ruling government decision to change the state pension age from 62 to 64. So basically government चाहती है कि जो pension age है उसको 62 से 64 तक increase कर दिया जाए, but that's what people are protesting. And the government argues कि as a life expectancy in France that is increasing, so it does its aging population, which means ki more retirees than the new entrants in the workforce. So since government के ऊपर burden increase हो रहे हैं, life expectancy increase हुई है, and साथ ही साथ जो aging population है वो भी increase हो रही है in France, so इसकी वजह से the burden on the government that is increasing, and that's why the government want to increase this age from 62 to 64. So that's there, and the generations of workers, they have accepted high mandatory taxes to fund the pension system because it creates interdependence and guarantees the state-backed pension earnings. So the new system means that current workers, they will have to work longer to sustain the pensions for the ballooning aged population. So that is the reason. So हमें बस इतना ही पता होना चाहिए, ज़्यादा डिटेल में जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. सो आईपीसीसी की जो सिंथेसिस रिपोर्ट है हमने कल इसको डिटेल में देख लिया था, सो विल नॉट बी टेकिंग दिस अप अगेन. And India's priority, it should be to minimize the loss and damage in terms of lives, livelihood, and biodiversity, and accelerate the equitable action and adaptation. So जहाँ तक ये climate change की बात है, adaptation की बात है, mitigation की बात है, हमारा main focus यही होना चाहिए कि हम जो loss and damage है उसको minimize कर दें in terms of जो that is related to human lives, livelihoods, and biodiversity loss हम face कर रहे हैं. And we need to accelerate the equitable action and adaptation exercises. So getting it right, a historian's effort to document the life of Bhagat Singh since 23rd of March is celebrated as Martyrdom Day. And we saw that on 23rd March 1931, Bhagat Singh was fiercely anti-imperialist with a deep and unwavering commitment to India. However, his ideas often did not fit the template of a freedom struggle based on ahimsa and satyagraha. So जो उनके ideas थे, वो absolutely they did not fit into जो बेसिकली महात्मा गांधी आइडियाज को पॉपुलराइज कर रहे थे, जिस तरीके से ही वाज अडॉप्टिंग अहिंसा, दैट इज नॉन वायलेंस एंड सत्याग्रह एज द मेजर टूल्स इन द फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल. द आइडियाज ऑफ भगत सिंह डिड नॉट फिट इनटू दैट. So you can just have a cursory look at this article. So Supreme Court finally it agrees to constitute special bench to hear the Bilkis Banu's petition. So she has challenged the release of 11 men who were sentenced to life imprisonment for her gang rape. सो जो 11 कॉन्विक्स थे उनको फाइनली रिलीज करने का डिसीजन लिया गया है, and this is what Bilkis Bano is now challenging in her petition. So उसके regarding Supreme Court ने finally agree कर दिया कि एक special bench constitute की जाएगी to look into this matter. So in Northeast India, there are certain demands for Greater Nagaland from basically now the NSC and IM, that is saying the center is not committed to Naga peace talks and there is lack of seriousness on the part of the government that has led to the belief that it plans to strike the Nagas with all its state machinery and a strategy will be worked out if dialogue fails. This is what the NSC and IM is to say. So President confers the Padma Awards on S.M. Krishna, Kumar Mangalam Birla. So former Karnataka Chief Minister S.M. Krishna, he is an industrialist, an industrialist Kumar Mangalam Birla and the playback singer Suman Kalyanpur. They were among those who were honored with the Padma Awards by the President at an investor ceremony at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So Mr. Krishna is also served as the former External Affairs Minister. He is known for his statesman-like vision and administrative acumen during a career spanning more than 6 decades. So this is the second highest civilian award, Padma Vibhushan. So these are the 3 personalities who were given this award. A noted architect, Balkrishna Doshi, known for his minimalistic, simple, and eco-friendly approach to architecture, was also given the Padma Vibhushan posthumously. And Rashtrapati Bhavan has tweeted these all this information. So, stock market investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who had passed away last year, he was also given Padma Shri posthumously. Then Mr. Birla is the chairman of the Aditya Birla Group. He was given the Padma Bhushan, and he is one of the first Indian groups to venture abroad and acquire widespread global presence. So we know about the Birla Group. So there were 106 Padma Awards which were approved on the eve of Republic Day, and over 54 people were given these awards on Wednesday. So 2 awardees, including the music legend Zakir Hussain, who is being honored with Padma Vibhushan, they were not present in the ceremony, and the rest of the awardees they would be conferred the honor in another ceremony later. So Chinese envoy says कि third party involvement, it will not help in resolving the border row. So we oppose the regional groupings that are composed for the purpose of geopolitical intentions for the containment of China. So this is basically जो USA का Indo-Pacific में role increase हो रहा है. That's what China is opposing in a way through Quad, and that's the case. So they are saying कि Quad जो है वो Indo-Pacific region का NATO है. And that is basically to counter China only. ये China का मानना है. So criminalization of marital rape, ये भी एक हमेशा topic of debate रहा है. So Supreme Court is going to hear the petitions जो चाहती हैं कि marital rape को criminalize किया जाना चाहिए, and exception to section 375 of the IPC decriminalizes marital rape. So right now, this is what the law says, and it holds that the sexual intercourse by a man with his own wife who is not under 18 without her consent, it is not rape. Without her consent is the main thing, कि without her consent, despite वो आपकी wife है and she is not under 18, but if उसकी consent भी नहीं है, आपकी wife की consent भी नहीं है, that is not termed a rape. So this is what we are trying to say, कि the petitions are also trying to say कि इस चीज को marital rape को criminalize करना चाहिए. So center, which was represented by the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, said कि it would take a day and a half to present its arguments regarding this thing, कि इस चीज को basically इस चीज को criminalize, marital rape को criminalize किया जाना चाहिए या नहीं. So a man is a man, an act is an act, and rape is a rape, be it performed by a man, husband, on the woman or wife. ये कर्नाटका हाई कोर्ट का कहना है. So obviously this is very true कि अगर वो आपकी wife and she is not under 18 and but उसका consent नहीं है तो आप still you can have sexual intercourse. That is not justified. So Indian Army is also going to reintroduce millets in rations of the soldiers. So yeah, you know that we've been promoting the use and the consumption and the cultivation of millets because we are celebrating this year as the United Nations International Year of Millets, and we have talked a lot about the benefits of millets in terms of uh, its potential in reducing the malnutrition problem in India, in terms of climate change, because it is one of the climate resilient crops which can help tackle the agricultural sector and basically also the saving the farmers also. So that's how it can help and play an important role in future. So artificial intelligence को use करके जो Assamese ghost of Assamese folklore है, you can see कि artificial intelligence को use करके how they are being depicted. So you can have a look इस picture में artificial intelligence. So come to the world news. US Fed Reserve lifts the interest rates amid banking sector fears. So despite recently हमने देखा कि 2 banks fail हुए हैं, उसके बाद भी यूएसए ने जो यूएसए का सेंट्रल बैंक है फेडरल रिजर्व, उन्होंने पॉलिसी रेट को स्टिल इंक्रीज किया है. सो इन्फ्लेशन स्टिल टारगेटिंग ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन स्टिल अभी भी हमारा वी कैन सी कि मेन एम यही चल रहा है बाय द ग्लोबल बैंक्स. एंड ऑब्वियसली इंडिया में भी हमने ये बोला है कि जो पॉलिसी जो हमारा रेपो रेट है जो आरबीआई इंक्रीज करता है इन द मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी मीटिंग्स जो होस्ट की जाती है बाय देम, सो उसको डीकपल करने की जरूरत है फ्रॉम द यूएसए, क्योंकि राइट नाउ तो अभी लिंकेज बहुत ज्यादा हाई है. जब भी यूएसए में पॉलिसी रेट इंक्रीज किया जाता है सिमिलर स्टेप इज टेकन बाय आरबीआई इन इंडिया. सो इसको डीकपल करने की जरूरत है. एंड अगर अभी यूएसए ने इंक्रीज किया तो डेफिनेटली इंडिया भी इसको आगे आगे आने वाली मीटिंग में इंक्रीज ही करने वाला है. सो इसकी वजह से बट वी आर सीइंग कि बैंक्स के ऊपर प्रेशर इंक्रीज हो रहा है एंड बैंकिंग सेक्टर की हेल्थ के लिए इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी अ पॉजिटिव थिंग आने वाले टाइम में. सो एक ये चैलेंज भी होने वाला है. साथ ही साथ इन्फ्लेशन भी इतना ज्यादा कम नहीं हो रही है, तो वो खुद एक चैलेंज बना हुआ है कि इतना ज्यादा रेट हाइक करने के बाद भी इन्फ्लेशन इज नॉट बेसिकली कमिंग विद इन द टारगेट. सो दैट इज अगेन इट्स अ चैलेंज. तो लेट्स सी कैसे कैसे आगे आने वाले टाइम में चीजें अनफोल्ड होने वाली है. बट राइट नाउ अभी ये इसकी वजह से बैंक्स के ऊपर जो प्रेशर है डेफिनेटली वो इंक्रीज होने वाला है. एंड ऑब्वियसली 2 बैंक्स फेल ऑलरेडी हो चुके हैं, तो उसका भी इम्पैक्ट ग्लोबली हमें देखने को मिल रहा है. And at least 13 people they were killed in 6.5 magnitude Afghanistan Pakistan earthquake, जो कि obviously India तक आया up till northern India in Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, दिल्ली, एनसीआर, हरियाणा में हमें देखने को मिला. एंड ट्रेमर्स जो थे डेफिनेटली दे वर वेरी थ्रेटनिंग, वेरी फियरफुल. सो इसकी वजह से because magnitude was 6.5, so the origin is basically saying it being said कि Pakistan Afghanistan से it all started. So it led to death of 13 people. So इस context में disaster management preparedness that is important कि हमारे पास proper plan हो. And जो construction techniques है वो बहुत important role play कर सकते हैं. And our prime minister also said कि giving importance to the local techniques, local methods of constructing the houses and buildings is very important because वो इस चीज को tackle करने में बहुत important role play कर सकता है. सो रशिया और चाइना दे बेसिकली दे आर ट्राइंग कि वो अपने रिलेशंस को और डीपन कर सके एंड एम एट द वेस्ट. सो रशिया और चाइना साथ आके दे आर बेसिकली ट्राइंग टू एम एट द वेस्ट. सो यूएसए के लिए आने वाले टाइम में challenges are going to increase. And Xi and Putin, both of them, they have criticized USA key Indo-Pacific strategy, and they call out attempts to politicize the multilateral groupings. So multilateral groupings like Quad B, which is a security initiative for the Indo-Pacific region, उसको भी as I told you कि चाइना के लिए तो वो एशिया का NATO है, which is there to basically aim and which is against China. So they have basically launched 80 bilateral projects, which is worth $165 billion. And security has been stepped up at the Indian High Commission in London amid the protests. ये हम already देख सकते हैं खालिस्तानी supporters. They have they're active globally also. India में तो पकड़ा नहीं जा रहा अमृतपाल सिंह. But let's see क्या होता आने वाले टाइम में. China boosts South Pacific influence with Solomon's port deal. So, a state-backed Chinese company it has won a contract to develop a key port in the Solomon Islands, and which is a major victory in Beijing's quest to gain a strategic toehold in the South Pacific. And Solomon Islands government they have announced that China's civil engineering construction corporation it has been chosen to lead a $170 million project to develop the international port in the capital Honiara. And आपको पता होना चाहिए कि Solomon Islands it is exactly कहाँ पे located है. So this deal also goes to China. So we are seeing definitely China का role increase हो रहा है. Basically it is trying to expand its role. And up to China and Russia, they have come together. So they are now going to be a very big challenge for USA. Coming to the business page, the number of foreign businesses exiting India surpasses the new entrants. So जितने ज़्यादा foreign businesses enter कर रहे हैं उससे ज़्यादा exit कर रहे हैं इंडिया को. Since 2018 we see कि more than 550 overseas firms they have ceased their operations in the country, while just under 417 companies उन्होंने अपने businesses इंडिया में set up किया है during the same time period. So analysts they advise caution in the interpretation given कि COVID-19 and global economic slowdown ये दो major reasons हो सकते हैं कि why we are seeing कि ज़्यादा businesses इंडिया से exit कर रही है. उन्होंने इंडिया में जो operations थे उनको completely stop कर दिया है compared to the numbers which are entering India. So global economic slowdown definitely it is one of the reasons in COVID-19 की वजह से भी how it led to disruptions and basically businesses बंद हो गए थे तो a lot of them might have incurred losses. So उसकी वजह से they might have also stopped their operations in India. So slump in Chinese demand leads drag on India's engineering exports. So जो इंडिया के एक्सपोर्ट बास्केट है टू चाइना उसमें इंजीनियरिंग एक्सपोर्ट्स इज वन ऑफ द कंपोनेंट्स एंड बिकॉज चाइना में डिमांड कम हो रही है तो उसकी वजह से जो हमारे इंजीनियरिंग एक्सपोर्ट्स है उसके ऊपर भी इम्पैक्ट होगा ही होगा क्योंकि अगर चाइना में डिमांड कम होगी तो उनका एक्सपोर्ट भी कम होगा. दिस इज वन थिंग एंड मूविंग फॉरवर्ड इसमें और कुछ वजह है कि नहीं. So there is no more rights to the foreign carriers in India as far as civil aviation is concerned. But what is the reason? India says it has no plans to provide any more flying rights or bilateral rights to the foreign airlines, that the country wants its own carriers to become global players. So हम ये चाहते हैं कि जो हमारे domestic players हैं वो खुद global players बन जाए. So because of this we are trying कि जो foreign carriers हैं इंडिया में उनको इतना ज़्यादा रोल ना दिया जाए एंड वी वांट कि जो डोमेस्टिक कैरियर्स है वो ही एक्सपैंड करे एट द ग्लोबल लेवल. So what are the bilateral air service agreements? So bilateral air services agreements they are between two countries and they regulate the number of flights airlines they can operate, and India has signed such agreements with 116 countries so far. So these can either limit the number of flights operated within two countries and they can allow unlimited access. So ये दोनों countries के ऊपर depend करता है. So what do the foreign airlines they want? So foreign airlines definitely वो अपना role increase करना चाहती है, अपना business operations expand करना चाहती हैं. So especially those coming from the West Asia and Southeast Asia, they've always wanted more entitlements under the bilaterals. So exactly businesses अपना जो expansion ही चाहते हैं आने वाले time में, they want to increase, they want to make more profits. So why is the Indian government against more rights? ये हमने देख लिया है. They want the domestic players to expand and they want them to become global and international. So that's there. And quote of the day is that before 4G, India was only a user of telecom technology, but now India is moving fast to become a big exporter of the telecom technology. That's what our Prime Minister is to say, कि not just usage, but we are trying कि हम अपने exports भी increase करें. So when exports they decline, can the production linked incentive be of any help or not? So this is the data that we have. So the first chart is showing the growth in the labor intensive export items. It lags behind the overall export. So जो labor intensive sector है, उस case में we are seeing कि exports, they are less compared to the overall exports. And the second data is regarding the domestic production of the key labor intensive items also trails overall industrial growth. So in a way हम ये बोल सकते हैं कि labor intensive sector में basically थोड़ा सा slow down आ रहा है. And labor intensive sectors कौन से in India? It includes food products, rubber and plastic, wearing apparels, leather and related products, and textiles. So these are all the labor intensive sectors which are majorly operating in India and they are functioning there. So क्या production linked incentive scheme a game changer हो सकती है given exports are slowing down? So we are seeing कि for much of 2022 में हमने देखा कि जो production linked incentive scheme है, it was touted as a game changer that could solve some of these problems by boosting the domestic manufacturing, promoting exports and creating employment. So इन एम के साथ, इन ऑब्जेक्टिव्स के साथ पीएलआई स्कीम को लॉन्च किया गया था कि गिवन जो भी चैलेंजेस हैं उनको सॉल्व करने में कहीं ना कहीं तो इट वुड बी हेल्पिंग एंड डोमेस्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इंक्रीज हो जाएगी, उसकी वजह से हम एक्सपोर्ट भी ज़्यादा कर पाएंगे एंड एम्प्लॉयमेंट भी ज़्यादा क्रिएट होगी. बट अगर ग्लोबल डिमांड ही कम हो रही है तो आप एक्सपोर्ट कैसे ज़्यादा कर पाओगे, वो एक सोचने की चीज़ है. एंड नॉट ओनली वाज दिस स्कीम गिवन अ मिस इन द बजट दिस ईयर, इट्स इम्प्लीमेंटेशन स्टोरी इट ऑल्सो रिवील्स अ डिफरेंट पिक्चर. सो अगर हम इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन की बात करें तो वो स्टोरी एक अलग ही चीज़ है. सो बेसिकली एक तो इस साल के यूनियन बजट में भी इट वाज नॉट हाईलाइटेड मच एंड इट स्कीम्स डेफिनेटली इट ऑफर्स सर्टेन सनराइज इन जो स्ट्रेटेजिक सेक्टर्स हैं उनको इंसेंटिव्स देने की बात ही स्कीम करती है, विच इज बेस्ड ऑन सेल्स फ्रॉम द प्रोडक्ट्स विच इज मेड इन इंडिया. सो अगर आपकी जो एडिशनल सेल्स हैं आपको फाइनेंशियल इंसेंटिव्स दिए जाएंगे फॉर दैट. सो इस तरीके से इट इज ट्राइंग कि जो डोमेस्टिक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंड प्रोडक्शन है वो इंक्रीज हो सके. बट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं. सो if you use the data up to September 2022 from the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, it has showed कि while PLI investment they have picked up, ये हमने देखा कि PLI investments they are increasing, which has resulted in 15% of the expected amount. Job creation has been far behind, but इतनी ज़्यादा जो हमने like expect किया था कि job creation बहुत ज़्यादा होगी because of this, वो इतनी ज़्यादा नहीं हुई है, and this is only at 3% of the expected level. And the gap between the investment and the jobs that is particularly high in the pharmaceutical drugs and the mobile specified electronic components. So जो gap है between the investment जितनी ज़्यादा आ रही है in terms of PLI and जितनी jobs create की जा रही है because of this, so वो gap बहुत ज़्यादा है, वो इतना ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए था जो हमारी expectations थी. So two segments, ACC battery and automobile and auto components, which are expected to create over 60% of the total jobs under the scheme, they hadn't received any investment until then. So abhi itna zyada we cannot completely say ki PLI is going to be a game changer in the coming times. Taking up the Financial Express, quickly going through the important things. So disagreements must not distort into hatred and violence, Chief Justice of India says. So underlying the need to respect the divergent views, CJI on Wednesday cautioned that disagreements they must not distort into hatred and hatred must not be permitted to evolve into violence. So he was addressing the 16th edition of the Ramnath Goenka Excellence in Journalism Awards, and he said that many journalists, both in our country as well as across the world, they work in difficult and unfriendly conditions, but they are relentless in the face of adversity and opposition. So it is precisely this quality which must not be lost. And airport expansion is on a track for the Adanis. So they'll bid if the government allows privatization of more airports. And their CEO of Adani Airport says that we have submitted our plans to the government, and whatever plans we have submitted, we are following our investments. So they aim to cash in on the rising air traffic that we are seeing. So Indian civil aviation sector, definitely, no doubt, it is expanding. And we've already talked about the Padma Awards, so we'll not be repeating it. So we are not having any kind of shortage in terms of fertilizers availability. So there will be no shortage of fertilizers, and the stocks that we will have at the start of the next month and estimated domestic production between April and September the next fiscal will be sufficient to meet the projected requirement during the Kharif season. So this is coming from our Union Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizers. So because of Russia Ukraine war हमने देखा था कि initially fertilizer के prices बहुत ज़्यादा increase हो गए थे because Russia is definitely one of the biggest supplier of fertilizers to India. So इसकी वजह से that was the reason why the prices they shooted up. Long pending issue GST Council may is on the online gaming tax. So council is going to meet in June and decide on this issue. So rate revision is also on the agenda. Apart from the taxation of the online games, horse racing and casinos, the council it may discuss the revision of the rates on millets and cement, and the issue of compensation cess on the pan masala may also be discussed. Then the council meet that is expected in June, as by then most states they would have made their budget also. So the council would consider whether to treat an online game as a game of skill or a game of chance. So दो ही सिनेरियो है, किसी गेम को आप जिस कैटेगरी में पुट कर सकते हो, या तो गेम ऑफ चांस है या गेम ऑफ स्किल्स है. सो राइट नाउ ऑनलाइन गेमिंग it can be basically online gambling, though it is a game of chance. So no large scale rate rationalization expected for now. So ये कुछ reforms हैं जो अभी तक resolved nahi kiye gaye hain. They've not been taken up by the GST Council, and that what we expect कि आने वाली meeting में they take up these issues. So imports may be eased as far as milk is concerned, because we're seeing कि milk के prices they are constantly steadily they are increasing. So अगर हम import करेंगे तो that would be helping us in reducing the inflation in milk prices. So supply crunch persists even as the demand picks up. So demand ज़्यादा होती जा रही है, supply कम पड़ेगा तो obviously prices increase ही होंगे. So all eyes are on China's peace initiative to end the year-long war in Ukraine. So let's see if China is going to play an important role. So while Putin had commended China's proposal for its impartiality and fairness, he added that this can be a basis for a peaceful settlement only when the West and Kyiv they're ready for it. So it is important that the other side hai, they also need to be ready, and if they want peace, then only it can be possible to end this war. So that there is no such readiness was evident in the UK's decision to supply the armor-piercing shells. So अभी भी हम देख रहे हैं कि different countries they are supplying weapons to Ukraine. So इस तरीके से they are saying, Russia is saying कि it is not evident कि they want a peace deal and they want to talk regarding ending this war. So that's the situation right now. So from one financial crisis to the next, so the shoes they have started to drop, because we saw the failure of the Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, Credit Suisse, and nobody knows how many more are yet to come. So in the immediate term, it is hard to see how a further and possibly substantive equity collapse that can be avoided. So is it a beginning of the next financial crisis is the main question that is coming in everybody's mind. So the movement of the Dow Jones during the 2008 crisis, this is a blue graph which is showing how it is steadily it is like crashed. And right now the movement of Dow Jones between January and October 2022. So it is at this level right now. Not right now, I should say, between January and October 2022. So let's see अगर this is the beginning of the next financial crisis or not. But right now India के ऊपर इतने ज़्यादा कोई impacts अभी हमें देखने को नहीं मिल रहे हैं. And we have already talked about कि India की जो connectivity in terms of the financial sector, in terms of the banking sector, on with basically the foreign banks, their dependency is very less. So that's why we are saying कि Indian banking system is much more resilient, it's stable, and it is disciplined right now, and we're not expecting any major impacts on the Indian economy because of the failure of different banks globally. So we need real punishment for the white collar crime to ensure that swimming naked never again feels you joyous as skinny dipping. So this is there, and apart from that, Indian Express, let's see, just quickly go through what important things do we have. which we have not covered so far. So everything on the main page has been already talked about. It has already been discussed. We have seen. We have had a look at the Delhi's budget. We've talked about the Padma Awards. So Prime Minister is going to address One World TB Summit, which is going to be held in Varanasi tomorrow. And I've already talked about the target, that is 2025 for India. And we are also going to release India's annual TB report 2023. And so here you can see the target has been talked about. 2025 is the case for India. Moving forward, Amritpal is still on the run, so not yet caught. So rats giving sleepless nights to Puri Jagannath temple authorities. So that's there, but this topic is not important, but this temple is definitely important for us from the perspective of art and culture. So you need to just have a clear idea about it. So happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know. Coming from the Ernest Hemingway, and happiness in intelligent people is the rarest thing I know. So climate is on the gloom, there's unseasonal rainfall and heat. It surges as threatening they are a rabi crop. And this year, the producers, they will have to take the hit as well, because we are also expecting El Nino this year. So इसकी वजह से, because of all these factors together, we are expecting कि आने वाले time में food inflation is going to escalate further. And yesterday we have talked about the right to health bill. Rajasthan is the first state which is to pass this bill. And what is the reason behind protesting? And who are protesting against this? This was already covered yesterday, so you can have a look at yesterday's video if you haven't. So this we've already said कि comparisons with the 1980s they are misleading. Obviously situation जो आज पंजाब में है and जो 1980s का time था, आप उस चीज को compare नहीं कर सकते, and you cannot say कि again that is going to be a repeat this time. Obviously that is absolutely not possible. But space for the moderate politics that is shrinking as politically separatist, socially divisive, and electoral regressive tendencies they compete for power. And the current episode, it began when Amritpal he arrived from Dubai on the political scene of Punjab and was installed as the head of the organization Waris Punjab Day. And he mimicked the demeanor, attire, and orality of Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. So he termed the farm laws, the drug menace, migration of labor from Bihar and UP, exodus of the Sikh youth from Punjab, alleged neglect of the Punjabi language, and denial of justice to the Bandi Singhs as a silent genocide. So कुछ issues इसमें ठीक है, relevant है, but the way he's been acting, the way he's trying to, get the limelight, that is absolutely not supported. That is illegal. एंड ये हम ऑलरेडी देख चुके हैं फिर से कि राजस्थान में जो राइट टू हेल्थ बिल है क्या प्रोविजंस है एंड क्यों पीपल उसको लाइक व्हाई पीपल आर अपोजिंग इट. So coming to the High Seas Treaty, in this picture you can see a sea line of the Isabella Island, which is in the Galapagos Islands. Climate change is ravaging the natural laboratory that inspired Darwin. So the nations of the world, they have agreed on a framework for the conservation and sustainable use of the resources in the open oceans that lie beyond the national territorial jurisdictions. And this is why the agreement is a critical step forward in saving the planet, and also why it is important to temper the expectations. So the law of the seas, the high seas, it comprises of 65% of the ocean surface, and about 43% of the earth is comprised by high seas. So these areas, they are home to about 2.2 million marine species and up to 1 trillion different kinds of microorganisms, according to the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, which is a network of the global experts on oceans. So we have the United Nations Convention on the Law of Seas, which is famously known as the UNCLOS, which is a 1982 agreement that is near universal acceptance. And among other things, UNCLOS defines the rights and the duties of the countries in the oceans, the extent of the ocean areas over which countries they could claim their sovereignty, and the legal status of the marine resources. So this point is very important. Ki what is actually UNCLOS talking about? And it also specified a set of rules for activities in the oceans, including navigation, scientific research, and deep sea mining. So it has also specified a set of rules for all of these things. So this is the next important point. And the treaty, it established the exclusive economic zones, which is the ocean areas up to 200 nautical miles, which is 370 kilometers from the coastline. So that's there. So you need to have a clear idea about the territorial waters boundary, what is the limit, and then we also have this exclusive economic zone, which is mentioned. It is up to 200 nautical miles, and beyond that, it is the what is the open sea comprises of. So key provisions of the recently signed treaty includes 4 main areas. So that is the demarcation of the marine protected areas, rather like there are protected forest or the wildlife areas. So similarly, we are planning to have a demarcation of the marine protected areas also. Second is the sustainable use of the marine genetic resources and their equitable sharing of the benefits arising from them. Third is the initiation of the practice of environmental impact assessment of all the major activities in the oceans, and lastly, capacity building and the technology transfer. So you can just have a look at all these four important areas, and it's going to be a difficult road ahead. So the treaty is the result of more than 20 years of protracted negotiation. So it has been possible after 20 years of negotiation. So the details of all the major contentious provisions, including, so there are certain contentious provisions over which we don't have, we can say that all the countries are not the same page on certain provisions. So that includes the environmental impact assessments, sharing of the benefits from the genetic resources, and mobilization of funds for conservation activities. These things are still to be worked out. So many issues, they remain unaddressed, including the mechanisms for policing the protected areas. What is going to be the mechanism for that? The fate of the projects that are assessed to be heavily polluting, and the resolution of these disputes. So these are some of the things which are yet to be resolved, which are yet to be finalized. And the process of ratification, that is also not going to be easy. So it took UNCLOS around 12 years to become the international law, because the necessary number of ratifications was not reached. So it took 12 years for it. So the Kyoto Protocol, the precursor to the Paris Agreement, also took 8 years to come into sight. So although we have basically finalized this treaty, but now it is yet to be seen that how many countries they become signatory to it and how much time is taken for that. So that's all for today. Thank you for joining in Sarkari, and you'll be also provided with the PDF link in the description box. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button for this video, and share it as much as possible. Thank you so much for joining us.